As cleanup continues after massive rains in the Hill Country, a storm from the east threatens the Texas Gulf Coast. The latest and more today on the Texas Standard.
Texas Standard is a production of KUT Austin, KERA North Texas, Houston Public Media, and Texas Public Radio in San Antonio.
I'm David Brown. An update on Tropical Storm Bertha. After making landfall in Louisiana, the storm headed back into the Gulf. Forecasters now fear it could loop back into South Texas. Texas's World Cup summer has come and gone almost. In Houston, an early accounting of the impact. San Antonio, a center for research on soldiers and PTSD, and why the city could become central to research on some unconventional therapies. Plus, brisket prices got you down? Tri-tips and other tips from Texas Monthly's barbecue editor Daniel Vaughn. Turn it up. It's Texas Standard Time. No matter where you are, it's Texas Standard Time on this 23rd day of July, 2026. I'm David Brown. Great to have you with us. And in a state still reckoning with the devastation left by catastrophic flooding in the Hill Country, already our attention is turning to another weather threat. Tropical Storm Bertha is moving toward the Texas coast after making landfall Wednesday in southeastern Louisiana. Its track has now shifted farther south, putting the greatest concern for heavy rain and flooding between Corpus Christi and Brownsville. Central Texas may see only a stray shower here and there, but gusty winds are expected as the storm passes to the south, and hanging over all of this is some seriously dangerous heat. Yesterday, you may have heard Austin reached 103. That's the hottest temperature of the year so far. Other parts of Texas got pretty dang hot, too, and there are heat warnings in other parts of the state. So just how serious is this threat from Bertha, and what does it mean for a place that's just been reminded with considerable force of just what extreme weather can do, as if we need a reminder? Here to tell us more, Matt Lanza. He's a meteorologist and editor of The Eye Wall. Matt, welcome back.
Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm doing all right, bracing for the worst and thinking about my friends out there on the Gulf Coast. Let's begin with Bertha, if we can. What can South Texans expect from that storm, and when might it actually arrive?
Yeah, so Bertha is going to gradually work toward the Texas coast during the day on Thursday and make landfall sometime probably later Thursday evening, somewhere on the middle or upper Texas coast. The storm itself is very disorganized, which is a good thing. You certainly don't want an organized storm making landfall right now, or really any time. But most of the rain, as you noted, is going to the south. And so places like Corpus Christi through Brownsville through Laredo could probably see a decent amount of rainfall as we go through the day today and into tonight. But fortunately, those areas have been relatively dry compared to much of the rest of Texas over the last month or so. So this rain may actually be kind of welcome down there.
You know, I was curious about something, though, because there was a lot of, downriver water from those storms in the Hill Country, and I wondered if some parts of South Texas might be saturated given all the rain we saw last week.
Yeah, it's certainly something to think about. And the good news is that most of that flood wave from the rains that we saw in Hill Country has pushed through the system now and is pretty much mostly through there. But, certainly a little bit more rain in some of the relatively higher rivers. We'll make them look a little bit more swollen, but I think the good news is that this will come down at a rate and intensity and over a period of time that should not lead to serious problems down in South Texas.
I'm curious why Bertha didn't develop into something bigger. Is it something to do with the conditions in the Gulf? Just one of those things where it could have gone either way? How do you read it?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And when you think about tropical storms and hurricanes in the Gulf, you think, well, the water's warm, so we're probably ready for something to blow up. But the reality with tropical systems is you need to have both those warm water temperatures and a relatively calm and conducive environment around them to allow for development. Bertha had the warm water. It did not have the environment around it. There was a lot of wind shear that was kind of pushing the center of the storm a little bit more to the south, or at least the thunderstorms from the storm to the south. And that's why when you look at it on satellite today, it looks kind of like what I almost deem to be like a half a cane, where there's nothing on the north side of it and all the storms and rain is on the south side. So it's a very unhealthy system thanks to that wind shear and, frankly, some of the dry air from some of the heat that we've had across Texas over the last couple of days.
Yeah, speaking of that heat, perhaps we should talk about the lay of the land in terms of which parts of Texas are seeing the worst of the high temperatures. I mentioned new record set in Austin yesterday.
Yeah, the heat has been pretty widespread over Texas. Houston hit 102 yesterday. Dallas hit 106. So everybody's getting to partake in the heat. The good news is with Bertha passing through, there'll be some more cloud cover. So the southern half of Texas will be a little bit calmer today and a little bit cooler. Still warm and humid, typical Texas summer. But over the next couple of days, it does look like we are going to see sort of the heat try to regain some intensity. And going into next week, it looks like another pretty standard hot week across Texas with high temperatures getting into the hundreds in many places. So folks will want to continue to exercise heat precautions.
Yeah, we should note that there is a heat advisory that's active until 8 this evening in the Dallas area. Heat index values expected to reach somewhere around 105, between 105 and 109. Fairly mild summer, however, if you look over the actual temperatures for the summer so far, which is another striking feature of this summer. Are we going to return to that, or is August just going to be more of what we're experiencing right now?
Yeah, August tends to be the worst month in Texas, right? That's when you get the real heat. And I think it's going to start off pretty hot. It's going to start off kind of by its definition with some of the stronger heat to begin the month. But I think as the month progresses, we'll probably be in and out of heat. And I wouldn't be shocked to see maybe some more rain chances kind of re-enter the picture. Hopefully, midway through the month or something like that to kind of give folks a little bit of time to dry out after all the recent rain that we've had this month.
We only have a few seconds left, but I'm curious what your expectations are going back to the Gulf for just a moment as we head into peak hurricane season.
Yeah, the good news is with El Nino in place, and a very strong El Nino in place in the Pacific, warm Pacific Ocean water, that's going to keep that wind shear that helps kind of hamper Bertha. It's going to be strong throughout the rest of hurricane season, so we're optimistic that the rest of the season will not be terribly busy.
We've been speaking with Matt Lanza. He is a meteorologist and the editor of The Eyewall, also with Space City Weather, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
That is correct. SpaceCityWeather.com.
Matt, thanks so much for the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
And a shout out to our partners at KEDT in Corpus Christi and Houston Public Media, keeping a watch on the weather. Stay tuned for the latest. Shifting back to the flooding that swept across South Texas last week, these are areas more accustomed to drought than rising water. For Dallas-based reporter Priscilla Rice of KERA, the story quickly became personal when her hometown of Crystal City was inundated, prompting her to head south and check on the people and places that shaped her.
I come from Southwest Texas Tierra, cacti, mesquite trees, and the Nueces River. Spanglish is my heart language. That's how I introduce myself to people. I am from Crystal City, or Cristal as we natives call it. It's my retreat where I reconnect with my family and friends. I never imagined it would flood like it did last week when a multi-day storm wreaked havoc across Texas. 2 people died in the storm, and floodwater inundated my hometown. It's been raining a lot lately this summer, my little sister Kate told me, but I don't remember it raining this much. I'm used to hot, dry summers and a sky where you can see an abundance of stars. Drought is not uncommon, but we know how to survive. Agriculture and ranching are important to this community. We are the spinach capital of the world. The city was even gifted a Popeye statue in 1937 by his cartoonist, E.C. Seeger. From Dallas, where I live, I always keep an eye on my small hometown. I may be far in miles, about 400, but never far in my heart. When I saw drone footage of flooding in areas that were once bone dry last week, I couldn't believe it. I knew I had to get home, but all roads to Crystal City were closed. The highways, 90, 85, even farm roads, were blocked. I panicked. Friends were posting about their families' homes in the Mexico Chico and Chula Vista neighborhoods in town being flooded. I called my mom, but she didn't answer. I was desperate. I texted friends and checked updates from the Zavala County Sheriff's Department, which had been identifying affected streets in posts on social media. Mom eventually called back. She was okay. But I had to see for myself. The roads finally opened on Sunday, so I headed south. I can never get there fast enough when my heart is in need of comfort. Some things seemed foreign, out of place to me. My old middle school, Sterling H. Fly Junior High School, was now a shelter. I've seen it rain here, but never enough to actually displace people. But other things felt familiar. Imelda Salinas, the wife of the Zavala County Sheriff, and my old high school mentor and cheer coach, was notifying folks on Facebook where they could donate the essentials: mosquito spray, cleaning supplies, diapers, wipes, and personal hygiene supplies. That's Crystal City. And really, all of Zavala County, Batesville and La Pryor included. When something happens, residents don't hesitate to lend a helping hand. From donating food to showing up as volunteers, if one person hurts, we all hurt. I've carried this mentality my whole life. Now that the water has subsided, families are beginning to assess what they can salvage. There's no electricity or water in their homes, and furniture and TVs have been turned upside down. A total loss, as one friend put it. At least no one died in Crystal City, she said. The Crystal Ballroom, where I spent many evenings of my teen years dancing at weddings and quinceañeras, including my own, was inundated with water, almost to the roof. But by the time I drove by on Monday, the water was gone. Pickup trucks were outside, ready to haul away debris. That's been a common sight these past few days. People in this town of about 8,000 have been showing up and putting in their granito de arena wherever it is needed, cooking food, donating supplies, or putting on gloves to clear out debris. People in my hometown are protective of how they are portrayed. We've been burned before. We hope when you tell our story, it's with dignity and compassion, I was told. As reporters, we must cover the facts and the truth. But it's the faces of the people I speak to that stick with me the most. Rural communities like mine are sometimes forgotten, but the people here remind me that they're bigger than any narrative that has been built around them. They are resilient, they have a voice, and they will survive this. If you've never heard of Crystal City, it has a very rich history. Google it. I'm proud to be from this small but strong community. I call Dallas home, but I will always be Crystal City. It's like what Sandra Cisneros wrote in her novel, The House on Mango Street. You will always be Mango Street. You can never erase what you know. You can never forget who you are. In Dallas, I'm Priscilla Rice for the Texas Standard.
Hey, I got a question for you here. What have you learned about flooding from living in Texas? We want to hear from you. Go to texasstandard.org/talk and record your own voice message that we can share on the show. Coming up on The Standard, how one Texas city could become a major center for research on psychedelics and PTSD. That and more just ahead. Stay with us.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Half Price Books, a Texas-bred new and used bookstore, proudly supporting public media and sustainability by keeping books, music, and other media in circulation. Store locations and more information at hpb.com.
Howdy, y'all. It's Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. The World Cup is come and gone, but the impact certainly lingers on. According to the host committee in Houston, more than 1 million people participated in some sort of World Cup-related event in that city. Houston Public Media's Michael Atkinson has more.
Over the 39 days of the World Cup, more than 500,000 people visited the fan festival in East Downtown, as well as the watch parties at Shell Energy Stadium. The East Downtown neighborhood saw a 225% increase in foot traffic for the festival year over year. Harris County Houston Sports Authority CEO Ryan Walsh says Fan Festival was a gem future organizers should take note of.
They walk into this parking lot that's essentially dilapidated. It's a gravel pit with, stuff sticking out of the ground and bare walls. And they had this vision to say, this is where we're going to have Fan Fest and it's going to be epic. And it was.
480,000 people attended the 7 matches in Houston. The vast majority of them were from outside the Houston area. I'm Michael Atkinson in Houston.
And you are listening to the Texas Standard. San Antonio is home to one of the country's largest military and veteran communities, as many Texans know, and some of the nation's leading research into combat-related PTSD as well. Now, Mayor Gina Ortiz-Jones wants the city to become part of the federal government's growing effort to test psychedelic drugs. After a San Antonio visit by the head of the Department of Veterans Affairs, the mayor's asking the VA to support future clinical trials in San Antonio, where researchers are already preparing a separate Defense Department-funded study involving MDMA, perhaps better known as the street drug ecstasy. Eleanor Fitzgerald covers veterans and military communities for the San Antonio Report. She's been following this story. Eleanor, welcome to the Texas Standard.
Thank you for having me.
What exactly is Mayor Ortiz-Jones asking the Department of Veterans Affairs to do?
So Jones and Collins met last month during the Secretary's visit, and they talked about psychedelic research that the VA is involved in. And the mayor's
Collins you're mentioning is Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins, right?
Exactly. So the mayor's ask for VA Secretary Collins is that San Antonio be considered as a location for these psychedelic drug trials. Now, I talked to the VA last week, and they told me they have 20 active clinical trials focused on psychedelic therapies, but none are taking place in San Antonio, which the mayor wants to change. And it's a little bit surprising because San Antonio has been leading research into combat-related PTSD, but those trials have largely been funded through the Department of Defense. And so she's hoping to get in on some of this VA-funded trials. And though they seem similar, it's a separate body of funding.
Well, that's very interesting, and I understand that San Antonio, specifically the UT Health Science Center, has been called a world leader into research on PTSD, and I'm wondering why we aren't seeing this research into psychedelic treatments in San Antonio, which is home for a lot of this research.
So what I learned from a researcher here, Dr. Alan Peterson, is that it's a bit of a complicated process to get VA-funded trials. Researchers actually will have to get an employment through their local VA in order to be involved with the trial. So they won't partner with a local university like the way the DoD does. And so he has told me that he's applying for these VA appointments in order to be involved with these trials. But it's just that added additional step that can be difficult despite San Antonio's history of leading in this field.
You mentioned Dr. Alan Peterson. Who is Peterson?
So Dr. Peterson is the director of Strong Star, which is a national research network that is directed at finding preventions and treatments for psychological health issues impacting military members and veterans. And he's a veteran himself, and he was involved in the very first clinical trials to study combat-related PTSD, which has become a signature injury in U.S. service members in post-9/11 combat. So this is really the last 20 years that research into this field has evolved.
But I understand that head of the Military Health Institute at UT Health San Antonio was telling you that I gather he has some concerns that the hype around psychedelic therapy might be getting ahead of the science.
So what he was telling me is that there's a lot of very powerful and oftentimes viral testimonials from veterans who have found relief through experimental therapies that are influencing other veterans who struggle with PTSD to seek out these therapies. But what he told me is that not a lot of people realize that him and his team have found success at treating PTSD through a variety of different treatments. And so his idea is that the best way to treat combat-related PTSD is through a combination of both psychedelic treatment and traditional therapies, and that it shouldn't be like a one or the other situation.
Well, let me ask you, is Mayor Ortiz-Jones more interested in the treatments and the therapies, or is she trying to get VA support for these plans for a new VA facility? Is her interest beyond just the treatment and the therapy?
So she's a veteran herself, and it seems like she's looking for support from the VA on a variety of different fronts. She wants to be involved in these psychedelic trials. She also wants the VA to support adding transitional housing options on VA property in San Antonio. And she wants the VA's support in getting money for a new VA hospital located in San Antonio. And she's had a lot of success at this. This $30 million of federal funding has been appropriated in the president's budget, and it's passed through the U.S. House of Representatives. And she now wants Secretary Collins and the U.S. Senate to officially approve this funding. But she realizes that San Antonio has such a large population of veterans. The South Texas VA system serves over 160,000 Texas veterans. And so she's looking for help for them in a variety of different avenues.
Well, does the VA seem sympathetic to her request?
It seems like this $30 million in federal funding for a new hospital will be approved. And it also seems like there is a lot of appetite for San Antonio's involvement in these VA-sponsored psychedelic trials. The medical community seems to want in on her ask to be a part of that. And the VA has a new partnership that they announced last week with the Health and Human Services Department to spotlight psychedelic trials on things like ibogaine. And so that's going to be a focus of the administration moving forward. So there may be more opportunities for San Antonio to get involved with experimental VA-funded trials.
Is there any dateline here? What happens next and when, that sort of thing?
So the Senate should be voting on this appropriations bill sometime soon in this coming year. And so that funding for the VA hospital could be approved very soon. However, the timeline for building it is one that extends much longer. I believe they're looking at a 2032 kind of completion date. So it's way out there. And then this evolution into psychedelic drug clinical trials is something that we're really just testing the waters with. The state of Texas has approved funding for looking at drug trials into ibogaine and other psychedelic drugs. So it's going to be something that we're really seeing develop over these next couple years.
Eleanor Fitzgerald covers veterans and military communities for the San Antonio Report. We'll link to her latest reporting at texasstandard.org. Eleanor, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Realtors, providing representation at every stage of the home ownership journey, helping clients understand their options and manage complex transaction details. Info at texasrealestate.com.
From the Texas Newsroom, I'm Matt Harab. An earthquake rattled parts of the Panhandle early this morning. U.S. Geological Survey says it registered as a 5.0 and was located near the town of Spearmint. Mitchell Locke is the county judge and emergency management coordinator for Robertson County. He says the last earthquake he can remember was more than 15 years ago.
My alarm was about to go off, but my cat woke me up. He kind of freaked out about it a little bit, and that woke me up. But I did feel it. There was some shaking, nothing too extreme, though.
Locke says the county is sparsely populated, and so far there has not been any reports of damage. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Bertha has crossed over Louisiana and is now headed to Texas. Bertha remains a weakened tropical storm with wind shear and dry air keeping it from strengthening. National Weather Service meteorologist Brian Kyle says the biggest impact will be away from the mainland.
Currently, the maximum sustained winds are right around 45 miles an hour, but most of that's situated offshore.
Bertha is expected to make its second landfall somewhere near Galveston later today. Flooding is not over in parts of Texas as swollen rivers move downstream. Nearly 600 LaSalle County residents were sheltering in place last night along the Nueces River. County officials say more than 120 people evacuated, with 3 water rescues taking place. The river is expected to remain in major flood stage through Sunday before beginning a gradual decline next week. Arlington police identified a suspect in a 14-year-old murder case using blood found at the scene and DNA from trash. KERA's James Hartley reports.
In January 2012, someone stabbed Iracema Chavez 100 times in her Arlington apartment. Now, 14 years later, Dallas real estate agent Myra Velasquez has been charged with capital murder. Arlington homicide detective Tracy Dixon says Chavez's family is grateful there's been an arrest.
Everybody who touches a case like this feels that elation when it's solved, feels the pain for the family.
An attorney for Velasquez says he'll release a statement later and that she is innocent. I'm James Hartley in Arlington.
Galveston is the focus of a new study from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on the resurgence of murine typhus. That's a flea-borne disease that can cause serious illness in humans and has had a resurgence in South Texas recently. And the countdown is still on for this afternoon's launch of the Starship rocket in South Texas. This is the second attempt after SpaceX scrubbed last week's launch when some of the engines failed to ignite. I'm Matt Harab in the Texas newsroom.
You're listening to statewide news from public radio stations across Texas. This coverage is only possible because of support from listeners like you. You can help sustain and grow Texas news coverage by donating to your local public radio station today.
33 minutes past the hour, Texas Standard Time. I'm Angela Kocherga. Cities across the country, including Los Angeles and here in Texas, San Marcos, have been rethinking the use of cameras on their streets as concerns about privacy and surveillance practices grow. In Houston, several license plate reading cameras from Flock Security have been cut down from their poles by residents who object to their increasing reach. Our tech expert Omar Gallaga wrote about Flock camera backlash for CNET, and he's here with more. Omar, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, Flock is a leading provider of camera systems that allow police departments to read license plates. How is that data used, and what other information from the cameras is collected?
Yeah, that's a good question because that's been kind of the center of the debate around Flock. Flock Security is an Atlanta-based company that partners with a lot of government agencies, law enforcement agencies. There's, by some estimates, about 90,000 Flock cameras around the country. And some of the debate over some cities deciding not to go forward with Flock is, where is that data going? They're collecting information about license plates. They might be collecting information about people. And some of that obviously is shared with those agencies to follow up on crimes or try to contribute to investigations. But where does that data go after that? Is Flock holding onto that data? Are they reselling some of that data? That has been kind of the center of the debate as cities like Los Angeles consider whether or not they want to continue doing business with Flock.
Well, your story focuses on Los Angeles, which recently allowed a 3-year contract with Flock to expire. Why did that happen?
That was specifically about the data, according to the LAPD and the city of Los Angeles. They have been working with Flock for the last 3 years, and when their contract was up for renewal for about, I think, 138 mounted surveillance cameras, they decided to just pause that renewal and go back to the negotiation table. The LAPD wants more control over the data that's generated. They want more notice if there's ever a data breach. They want to have 24 hours notice. So they are still at the negotiation table, and they may renew that contract, but it definitely came after a lot of scrutiny and some kind of community backlash over the last few months. There have been a lot of stories written about Flock's effect on LA, and I think they kind of decided to take a breather and kind of reevaluate what they're doing with Flock.
And this is happening in other cities like San Marcos?
Yes, San Marcos has also kind of pulled back on their collaboration with Flock. They recently decided that they were going to add 14 more Flock cameras, bringing the total to 33, and they decided not to do that. So there's other cities, including Dayton, Mountain View in Oakland, California, Knoxville, Tennessee, Flagstaff, Arizona, a lot of towns that are either canceling or pausing their service with Flock as they kind of deal with community backlash and reevaluate how this data is handled.
Well, are cities giving up on license plate readers, or are they just looking for changes in the way the data is collected, stored, and used?
It's a little bit of both, and also now there's new questions. I'm just seeing this this week. There was an investigation about whether the cameras that Flock uses can actually track people, not just license plates. And they do have a product that does that, but they have been really downplaying that, saying, "Oh, we're not doing that. We're not tracking people or following their movements." Well, they have products specifically that are able to do that. So there's concerns now, well, are they using facial recognition? Where is that data being stored? So I think Flock is in the middle of kind of a PR crisis as communities determine, do we really want these cameras in our cities?
Well, just to be clear, is this going to police departments, federal agencies like ICE? I mean, here on the border, we have a lot of cameras, a lot of license plate readers. Facial recognition is common. So it sounds like it's coming to a town near you. But which agencies have access?
Well, usually it's the agency that's working directly with Flock, like that whatever information they're collecting is shared with that agency. But then there's questions: is that information, that data being repurposed? Are they sharing it with, with DPS? Are they sharing it with immigration investigations? And there has been some evidence that could be happening. So I think it goes way beyond. Are they just storing the information or reselling it? It could be that they're helping ICE, or that they're helping government agencies, and cities are having to reevaluate whether they want to be a part of that.
We just don't know. So now in Houston, a few people have actually vandalized the cameras. What happened, and how has the city responded?
Yeah, earlier this month, there were some incidents of these cameras being cut down and spray painted, and this costs the city. Like, Flock doesn't cover these costs. Like, this actually comes out of the Houston police budget. So yeah, Houston, this is a crime. They're investigating it like a crime, and Harris County did vote to renew their contract through 2027 at a cost of just under $1 million. So Houston is continuing with this partnership, but obviously there's some people in the community who don't like it and are taking vandalism action into their own hands.
Omar Gallaga writes about tech for CNET, and he tells us about it each week right here on The Standard. Omar, thank you.
I sure appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Support for Texas Standard comes from UT San Antonio, providing education and research for communities across Texas, with a focus on student success and workforce development. The University of Ambition, utsa.edu. Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas CASA. For a child in foster care, small moments today can have a big impact tomorrow. More on how lending time and support can help make a difference at becomeacasa.org.
This is Marcos Gonzalez, and I'm the author of The Focus Puller, and you're listening to the Texas Standard. The Focus Puller is about a young man, Rio Zapata, who wakes up one morning just completely rattled from a nightmare. Inside the nightmare, there's some genuinely disturbing scenes, but it's one specific thing that lingers. The lingering memory haunts him for the next 24 hours, and he spends the day wandering around Santa Fe. The story just freely jumps from him into other people's lives. The past, the present, even otherworldly. But it always comes back to Rio, and a good portion of the book also flashes back to Laredo, 1975, where something happened to Rio that he spent his whole life not quite wanting to face. One day I read Ulysses and Gravity's Rainbow back to back, and it kind of set me free. If anyone's ever tried to read either of those two books, they're incomprehensible, but you can't put the book down. So I was sort of just set free on a style of narrative that just let my imagination fly. The reason I chose The Focus Puller for the title of my book is because it describes a job I did in the film industry. A focus puller specifically is the person who quite literally has their hand on the lens of a movie camera. And as people are moving towards the camera or away from it, for example, we're moving the lens focus to follow them. It's a highly technical job. It's an incredibly critical part of movie making. I'd like for people who pick up the Focus Puller to keep their mind wide open for unhinged fiction that's very much in the category of postmodernism. But the way I appreciate literature, and I have just one rule, and that's to be entertained. And I think that the Focus Puller, if you pick it up and you just go with it, will entertain you. This is Marcos Gonzalez, and I'm the author of The Focus Puller, and you're listening to the Texas Standard.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. You step up to the counter at your favorite barbecue joint, order some brisket, and suddenly lunch feels like a major investment. Sky-high beef prices squeezing restaurants and customers alike, truth be known, and the national headlines can make it sound as though Texas barbecue itself is in trouble. But that leaves out something important. Hey, see that smoke? You know what we say around here, where there's smoke, there's Daniel Vaughn, barbecue editor of Texas Monthly. Daniel, welcome back.
Good to be with you, David.
Let's start with the squeeze. How serious is the rise in beef prices when it comes to barbecue restaurants, and why is brisket taking so much of the blame?
Yeah, well, beef prices are up, as we've all seen at the grocery store, but the problem with Texas barbecue in particular is we're really relying on brisket, and the brisket prices have just outpaced that rise in price for beef. So brisket is just even more expensive. But as Brian Bracewell at Southside Market says, he's like, barbecue is not expensive. Brisket is expensive.
We're too focused on a single cut of meat, perhaps,
Yeah, I think so. In the 60s and 70s, Texas barbecue really changed from being focused on a half a beef coming into the meat market to ordering boxed beef. So you could order individual cuts. And that's really where we saw that shift towards just those individual cuts like brisket and in some cases shoulder clod. But nowadays it's all about the brisket, and it's all about the brisket at every Texas barbecue joint and every Texas style barbecue joint across the country. And these days we've just got so many more places ordering brisket by the box than we've ever had before.
Well, I gather that according to what you've been reporting for Texas Monthly, some pit masters are now turning to tri-tip, beef cheeks, flat iron, some of these other cuts. Which of those are producing food that might persuade even a brisket loyalist to branch out?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've had some great tri-tip out there. Space Cat Barbecue in Austin does a really good version. And the thing about tri-tip, it seems a little counterintuitive because it is more expensive per pound than brisket. But the thing about tri-tip is it cooks a lot quicker, so there's a lot less labor that goes into it. And because you're only cooking it to about a medium doneness and you're not really having to trim it much, your loss on it is so much less than a brisket. So a brisket, you might be serving 50% of the starting weight of that brisket by the time you get it trimmed and smoked. Whereas a tri-tip, you're probably going to serve more like 90% of that by the time it's trimmed and smoked.
Wow. All right. Well, that's so when you order at the counter, you ask for tri-tip, right? That's what you do. And most
you're going to have to check the menu because there's not a ton of places that are serving it yet, and that's really my plea here. Is that if these Texas barbecue pit masters want the price of brisket to go down, we've got to cut into the demand of it, right? We've got to cut into the demand by looking at different cuts of beef. And some of them are adding the tri-tip, some of them are adding beef cheeks as well. Beef cheeks, if you've ever had them, if you haven't had them, a beef cheek sounds not maybe that appetizing.
It sounds gross, frankly. I don't like the idea of beef cheeks.
But if you have eaten it, then you know that it's basically...
I have, Daniel, but I'm telling you, it grosses me out. I've got to get my head around that. It's just one of those things.
Well, I mean, we could give it a different name if you like. I mean, look at what Sweetbreads the name has done for thymus glands.
I don't even, again, see, you've just ruined that for me. Thanks a ton. All right, well, so...
But again, if you've ever had a beef cheek, then you know that it's incredibly rich in gelatin. It is like eating a mini fatty brisket.
It is good. It tastes fantastic. There's just no getting around it. There's no getting around. But here's the thing. I mean, your plea seems to be more toward the people who run these joints. But customers arrive with expectations, and I'm wondering how tough it's going to be for a restaurant owner to say to the customer, in effect, we're going to serve you a different version of Texas barbecue.
Yeah, well, Mimsey's Craft Barbecue in Crockett has had this issue. They're only serving sliced brisket now on Saturdays. So their customers do come in throughout the week asking for brisket, and they don't offer it. It's such a loss. It could be a loss leader for them, except it's really just a menu loser for them. So They've got it just once a week. And I mentioned Brian Bracewell earlier at Southside Market. He is producing videos speaking directly to his customers, just saying, listen, we've still got brisket and you can pay this price for it, or for half the price, you could get our sliced pork instead. So, trying to push pork, trying to really push any other protein.
Texas barbecue was, in a sense, born from necessity and improvisation. When you look back at history, I wonder if there's not a silver lining here. These high prices ultimately making barbecue places more varied, maybe more interesting altogether.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Texas, what makes it unique is it's the beef state, but it doesn't have to be brisket. I think Texas barbecue is bigger than brisket.
We'll link to Daniel's full story over at texasstandard.org, including some of the joints finding new ways to put great beef on the tray without relying entirely on brisket. And you know what we say, where there's smoke, there's Daniel Vaughn, barbecue editor of Texas Monthly. Daniel, save us a little shoulder clot.
You betcha.
Support for Where There's Smoke comes from H-E-B, whose Texas Tough barbecue foil and pink butcher paper helps seal in moisture and flavor, keeping food temperature steady. H-E-B. Here, everything's better.
This is the Texas Standard. I'm Laura Rice. Frisco residents from 3 very different religions say they want to worship in peace, and they need more room to do it. But KERA's Caroline Love reports immigrants in this growing Collin County community have faced intense scrutiny and hostility over 3 new religious institutions that haven't been built yet.
Let's just sauce it for like 1 or 2 minutes.
Guli Janat cooks enough chicken curry to feed her family for a couple of days while she's working her nursing shift at a local hospital. She's originally from Bangladesh, but has called Frisco home for almost a decade. Janat lives with her husband, Ifti Islam, and their 2 kids and Tuna, the family cat. Their son plays on his high school's football team, and their daughter likes to read and crochet.
I'm making fingerless gloves that are like in the shape of cat paws.
The family is Muslim. Janat and Islam say the community has been welcoming, but that appears to be changing. Earlier this year, the Frisco City Council heard hours of public testimony at a meeting in May against a new mosque that's being built, plus a Hindu temple and the city's first Jain temple. Since then, a lot of anti-immigrant social media posts have been shared in Frisco. Frisco has a large immigrant population. More than a third of the city's residents speak a language other than English at home, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The new religious institutions are meant to serve a diverse population that needs more space to worship. Islam says he's never encountered such hostility towards immigrants.
Even my daughter asked me one day, how come someone say Islam is a terrorist religion? So that is very uncomfortable for me.
Many of the commenters at the council meeting in May said they're worried about the mosque enforcing Sharia law. That's a Muslim religious code that's not enforceable under U.S. law. Much of Sharia focuses on lifestyle, things like what to wear, when to pray, and what to eat. Islam says the exact meaning of Sharia and how to enforce it is debated, even among Muslims. He also says the concerns about Sharia in Frisco are misplaced.
I can firmly say there is no Sharia law here in North Texas, and we don't want Sharia law here in Frisco.
But those concerns about Sharia still dominated a recent runoff election for mayor in Frisco. It's also a major issue in state and national politics. Governor Greg Abbott and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton have both launched investigations of a North Texas mosque called the East Plano Islamic Center. The mosque is associated with a proposed Muslim-oriented housing community formerly known as Epic City. Abbott and Paxton have accused the development of enforcing Sharia and banning non-Muslims, something the project developer has denied. Nothing has been built so far. Jason Blazakis is the director of the Middlebury Institute's Center on Terrorism, Extremism, and Counterterrorism. He says politicians who amplify those kinds of views give license to people who believe it and legitimize fringe beliefs.
It gives safe harbor to individuals at that local level, the regular people who are looking at this context and this content, and gives them a feeling of it's okay for me to do this too.
Many Frisco residents say those comments don't represent their values. People stood outside the Islamic Center of Frisco Mosque after the divisive city council meeting in May for several Fridays to show support. Friday is a day of worship for Muslims. The mosque is often packed, not unlike Christian churches in Frisco. Nadim Zaman has been a member at the Islamic Center of Frisco for decades, and he says the city needs another mosque.
If there's going to be 15,000 Muslims coming to for prayers, and the capacity here is less than 5,000, it is very natural that we will need more properties.
The Jain Society of North Texas is also running out of space. The temple in North Dallas is the only place of worship for the 700 Jain families in North Texas. Jainism is an ancient Indian religion. It promotes nonviolence, and it has no connection to Islam. The building is small. There's a 2-story brick building and a smaller, separate building for prayer. Worshippers take their shoes off and leave them outside before entering. Then they ring a bell.
That sound is supposed to calm you down, break that barrier between your outside and inside things.
That's Ami Dalal. She's a volunteer at the Jain Society of North Texas. Dalal teaches at the Pathshala, the Sunday school program for Jain children. The classrooms at the temple are cramped. Dalal says the students sit cross-legged on the floor.
One of the things in Jainism is also respect the source of your knowledge, right? So the books and stuff, right now kids have no other way but putting it on the floor where people have been and all that, and that's just now a no-no in Jainism.
The Jain Society of North Texas surveyed its members about where to build the new temple. Dalal says a lot of Jains live in or near Frisco, so it made sense to build the only Jain temple in North Texas there. Frisco already has several Hindu temples, but Rajenda Rani Charamamia, who's Hindu, says the new temple is closer to her house. Hinduism is another ancient Indian religion, but with significant differences from Jainism.
I have to go to 2 miles to worship. Maybe I'll have an excuse versus if I have to just drive 2 minutes. That will motivate me to go and have some calming time, self-reflection time.
Charamamia is from South India and has lived in Frisco for 15 years. She says the sudden animosity toward immigrants in a city that has been so welcoming is surprising. Charamamia worries about what it means for her twin sons. They're high school band students who were born and raised in North Texas.
All they have seen is here. And if they are having to face so much of questions about their race or existence, it does hurt as a parent.
The tension in Frisco hasn't gone away, but the mosque, Hindu temple, and Jain temple are still on track for construction. And in June, the candidate for mayor who ran on a Unite Frisco platform, Mark Hill, defeated his opponent Rod Vilhauer, who ran an anti-Sharia campaign. The new mayor and his supporters say they'll unite with their neighbors to keep Frisco a welcoming place. I'm Caroline Love in Frisco.
Well, I don't know if you've heard about this, but a Texas city has filed suit against the state over how public schools are funded. Now, that sort of thing's not especially new, but what is the claim that Texas has effectively turned Texas's school districts statewide into unconstitutional tax collectors. What Midland's ISD claim might mean for the future of school funding. That story, the week in politics, and more on a Friday edition of the Texas Standard. You know who else is going to be here, right? I'm thinking about our friend Wells Dunbar, who monitors the Talk of Texas, of course. All this week, he's been asking listeners a question. I mentioned this earlier, but I don't want you to miss out, so here goes, all right? Here's the question. What have you learned about flooding from living in Texas? What have you learned about flooding from living in Texas? We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. Go to texasstandard.org/talk. and record a voice message that we can share on tomorrow's big broadcast. Hey, we're out of time for today's program, but you can keep up with the news 24/7 altogether now at texasstandard.org. You folks down in South Texas, stay dry and hope you can join us again tomorrow.
Philanthropic support for Texas Standard comes from Casey and Scott O'Hare, the Winkler Family Foundation, Lynn Dobson and Greg Wooldridge, Adrian Killam, the George Huntington Family, and the Cynthia and George Mitchell Foundation.